Hey, it's AMC Me, and I'm back with episode 7 of Marry My Husband. I wanted to mention that the time between Jiwon coming back to 2013 and Ji Hyuk coming back to 2013, it's was 7 days in between. Jiwon got there first, Ji Hyuk got there after. I watched both episodes already because today's Wednesday when I'm recording. Um, or no, sorry, it's Tuesday. I said it last video. I'm going to say it again. Every week it gets better and better. Um, and then I'll talk about some other stuff at the end. But episode 7 opens with Jiwon and Ji Hyuk, right? They figured out that each other are both from the future because of BTS. I'm happy that the episode starts with them hashing out everything. Um, Jiwon actually explains to Ji Hyuk, like, hey, um, Sumin has to get married to Minhwan because if she doesn't, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to do it. Jiwon, Ji Hyuk's kind of like not sure because he doesn't know the rules of this time jump. But they're on the balcony at work and it's dark. And Ji Hyuk's like after she explains that, he's like, "Hey, do you want to go somewhere and talk more about it?" They go back to his apartment. I do want to say, while they were on the roof, he did admit to her that he sent Inho to the reunion. She asked him, like, "How did you know about that?" And he told her, he was like, "It's because I went to your funeral." And she was like, "How was it?" And he said it was sad. There were a lot of people there that had a lot of regrets. And I think he mainly was talking about himself. And she said she doubted it. She was like, people probably forgot about who she was. And they were just like, oh, I remember her. Oh, she passed. Oh, that's too bad. And kind of like just brushed it off and went about their day. She didn't know how much of an impact she had on those people because they really were regretful. All the people that bullied her at the reunion had regrets. Her crush had regrets because he found out the truth as to why she might not have talked to him, but it doesn't explain the letter. But he might have had like an inkling, and we know Ji Hyuk has a lot of regrets. But when they get to his apartment, they go in. She goes inside and she sees Hang. That's the cat's name. I don't remember them saying it, but I'm just going to say it. The cat's name was Pang in the webtoon. So I'm thinking since everything else is, for the most part, following the webtoon, the cat's name is Pang too. And Ji Hyuk goes to pick him up because he's like, he doesn't really like anybody or he doesn't like humans. And Jiwon's like, no, it's okay. I'm good with cats. And he puts him down thinking that he was just gonna like run away. He runs right up to her, lets her pet him and everything, and he licks her. And he's like, "Well, I thought he didn't like people." And then this is where she explains everything, where she's like, because he asked her, "Why didn't you break up with Benoit?" And she said, "Tried to. If you don't remember the first episode, they showed her trying to break up with him, and he um was about to physically abuse her, like in the middle of the street. He pushed her up against a brick wall and was yelling at her. So she didn't go through with it. And she says to Ji Hyuk, she's like, if he can kill me in 10 years, what would stop him from doing it now? And that outburst that he had in the first episode kind of confirms she's right. I don't think he would have any qualms against murdering her and trying to say it was an accident, only this time he wouldn't get money out of it. And then he's like, okay, well, why didn't you run away? And she explained the coffee pot incident where she had a burn on her hand, but when she came back, it was gone. And because he um, moved the pot out of the way and he got burned, he had the same exact burn that she had previously, same shape and everything. He tells them it's a marriage for marriage, like marriage, somebody has to get married, meaning Suman needs to marry Min Hwan, and a death for a death, meaning Suman has to pass away, which is kind of like harsh when you think about it. Like, damn, like she was mean, but like she did kill you in the previous timeline. So, do we feel that bad? Plus, she's been a bitch like the whole time they've known each other, it seems like. And when Jiwon says that, Ji Hyuk is kind of like shook. And I'm like, why are you worried? And then I was like, oh, yeah, he died too. Is that what he's worried about? Because I'm like, a death for a death. And it's like, but he was in a car accident. So would he need, like, what caused the car accident? The cat caused he kind of caused the car accident himself, swerving from hitting the cat. So would it be like null and void and nobody needs to die? Or does somebody else have to die for him to stay alive? I'm not sure. That hasn't been explained, and it wasn't an issue in the webtoon. I did want to mention, I'm going to talk more about the webtoon now because it's kind of like straying a little bit, which in a good way. I mentioned a few videos back that Ji Hyuk in the webtoon, after Jiwon's funeral, he ran into her father and he like took his taxi to the ocean and basically walked into the ocean and unalived himself. That didn't happen in the webtoon, so there wasn't an issue where you're like, is he gonna die on this in this timeline? Because in the webtoon he did it to himself. So you're like, okay, well if he's happy because he's talking to her and stuff now, he doesn't have to worry about that. But this time he got in a car accident, so it seems like it might become an issue down the line. We'll see. And it gives him more agency because in the webtoon he was just all about Jiwon and he really didn't have any issues. His grandpa wasn't an issue in the webtoon. He didn't really have any issues other than supporting Jiwon and making sure nothing happened to her. That was like his whole persona. He didn't really have any kind of personality or anything, which they flesh out in the drama, and I appreciate. And when Jiwon asks him, she's like, "How did you come back?" And it goes to a flashback where Ji Hyuk is laying Jiwon's ashes to rest, and he goes to leave, and his car doesn't start. And a taxi pulls up. It's Jiwon's dad, and he gets in, and they have this conversation. And it's really poignant because there's not a lot said between them, but there's a lot to be interpreted between their conversation. He says, "You seem like you really miss them, or they are a precious person to you." And he's like, "Well, I don't really know if they are or not because I didn't really get to know them because he never approached her." And her dad, Jiwon's dad, is like, "Well, you should have been a man, and you have to be a man and go after what you want." And he was like, "Well, I never thought that there was a good time, or if there was, it was inappropriate." When she started at the company, and then the next time he seen she was in a relationship, he didn't want to be that wedge or be a burden. And then after it says that, he says that he just fell asleep and he woke back up. He didn't tell her. He's not telling her about the car accident. He just says he goes to sleep, and when he wakes up, it's 2013, which is kind of true because in the drama, that's what we see happen. He could have been in a hospital bed for all we know. I'm not sure. Probably not. Maybe we'll see. They keep showing the car accident, and that's when I'm like, why are they so focused on this accident? And I'm like, oh, because in the webtoon he took his own life. So in this timeline, that's all we would have to worry about. This time he thinks maybe he won't make it past what, 10 years? Because he thinks he died, right? He got in the car accident. It goes to Juron. Everybody's coming into work and they're like in the lobby going to whatever floor they need to go. And Juron gets a phone call from her husband. Let's just say her husband is starting to parallel Jiwon's previous timeline when they showed Minwon on the couch playing video games. He calls her and tells her, "Hey, I can't pick up. I think that's their child." And he was like, "I got an interview at 7 p.m." And she's like, "What? Do you expect me to believe that? That's a terrible lie. No company is going to interview you at 7 p.m." And he's like, "Well, I said it, so it's true." And in the background, you hear their daughter calling him, and she was like, "Did you not take our daughter to daycare?" And he rushes off the phone, and she just thinks about how uh, Jiwon reached out to her to work with her on the proposal for the meal kits, and I think she's feeling like kind of sad because her life was starting to get better, and then that issue happened with that director. Can't say I feel bad about that whole issue at all. But while she's thinking about that, the grandpa's right hand man, he walks in and they like kind of make eye contact, and he walks past her, and it does a flashback to both of them at a UNK. Um, I think it's like another branch, and it's on Jeju Island. And he's looking at her, and he was like, "I really can't stand people like you." And then it just cuts to a different scene, and I'm like, what is his deal? What did Yuran do to you, sir? And then it cuts to Ji Hyuk, and he's asleep on the couch, and you can hear his phone vibrating. It's his sister calling him. She's calling him and telling him to bring his ass to work because Grandpa's right hand man just showed up, and everybody's freaking out. Because I think they call him cutthroat, or they call him like there's blood in the water, so he's about to come and like shake shit up and make it real uncomfortable for everybody. And Ji Hyuk rushes into work, and he goes in his office, and he was like, "What are you doing here? HR sent you?" And he's just like, "I just go where I'm supposed to go." We do find out later in the episode, but his name, I'm gonna call him Mr. Lee for now, but Mr. Lee's like, "I just go where I'm supposed to go. HR told me to come here." And Ji Hyuk's like, "HR didn't tell you." He's like, "The CEO can do whatever he wants." Basically saying, "Yeah, your grandpa did send me here, and you don't have any say." And he's just sitting there. Like, you can tell he's like silently fuming, and he's like, Mr. Lee looks at some documents, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't think this was your taste." And it's Jiwon's resume. And he was like, "So you were gonna have her be in charge of this project after you guys hung out at your apartment alone after work hours? And Ji Hook's like, nothing happened. And he is like, you expect me to believe that? He's like, HR is going to investigate this and they'll put the proper person in charge of the program. It won't be somebody who got swayed by public opinion or by some woman. And Ji Hyuk's like, she's not any woman. I was like, that's right. I love that he always, every time somebody tries to talk shit about her, he's there to shut that shit down. But he's like, until then, until the investigation, we're gonna put Juron in charge of the program, but you can add Jiwon onto it as if you want. And Ji Hyuk gets up to leave, and he was like, "You're gonna find out that she's a capable person, and she should be the one who's in charge of this project." And he walks out the office. This dude, I don't like this dude. I don't know if they're gonna make me change my mind. I hear people whispering about who he's supposed to be from the webtoon. But at this point, I don't like him. He's become an obstacle I don't like. And then it goes to one of the meeting rooms, and it's Ji Hyuk, Juron, Jiwon, Lee Yeon, Sumin, and Minhwan. And Ji Hyuk is there to tell them, he's like, okay, the project's still on, but Juron's going to be in charge of it. And Jiwon looks at him because he told her when they're on the roof, before they both told their secrets, that she was going to be put in charge of the project. But he says that everybody in the room is part of the project now, except for Hee Yeon. And she kind of looks, but he leaves the meeting room, and Jiwon goes out to talk to him. And he was like, if you have any questions about the project, speak to Juron about it. And he gets on the elevator, and he's like, if you need help with anything, you know how capable I am. And the elevator closes, meaning at this point in time, that didn't go how I foreseen it. I think if she wouldn't have went to his apartment, she probably would have been in charge of the project, maybe, because Mr. Lee was tailing him. So he's seen them, so he got suspicious. We'll see. I feel like she'll eventually get put on the project as the person leading it, not just added to it. But yeah, now it's Juron, Jiwon, Park Minhwan, and Sumin that are all on the project. Lee Yeon got left out. But when the elevator doors closed after he said that, the look he gave her, his eyes, like, he's hot, okay? I don't know why everybody's saying that he's not attractive. I don't know what's wrong with them. I don't know what's wrong with their eyes. Even when he had those glasses on, which I heard are Tom Ford's, he still looked good. He has this brooding, sultry look in his eyes, and I appreciate it. Minhwan and Sumin are all excited that they're on the project. But he yawns like, why are there 3 assistant managers on this project? That's a lot. When before they only had 1. They had Juron, and then they had the asshole boss, and then they had the director, and they had Sumin. So she's like freaking out, like, am I going to get let go? What does this mean? And then it cuts to Minhwan and Sumin like hanging out together, and he gets her strawberry milk. Like, I know we need for them to get together, but it pisses me off every time I see them together. Being little snakes. We got to let it happen. And I wanted it to happen, but it still pisses me off when I see it. Oh, he tells Sumin about the team building outing, and they usually have 2 a year. And he tries to talk shit about Ji Hyuk for some reason. I don't know why. I just feel like he feels emasculated compared to him, as he should, because he's a real man. Oh, well, I forgot. He told him he was a child, and he fucked him up twice. I forgot. He slammed him at the park, and then he twisted his arm up on the roof. Forgot about that. That's why he's always trying to talk shit. But then Sumin tries to give Minhwan her strawberry milk, and I'm like, is she trying to get an indirect kiss out of him? But he tells her no, surprisingly. And then it cuts to later that night, and Ji Hyuk is over by the river, and he just gets out his car, and he's just mad because thinking, he's playing through what Mr. Lee said and how everything is not working out like he had originally planned as far as the project. It flashes through him finding out what Jiwon said earlier about a death. And I think he's thinking again about, am I gonna die in 10 years? But he goes to a restaurant. It's the restaurant that Inho just started working at, and he gets drunk. And Inho comes up to him. He's like, should I consider this a coincidence or are you stalking me? And Ji Hyuk, with his drunken self, gives him a test. He's like, have you ever heard of dynamite? And Ho's like, yeah, created by the Nobel Prize um inventor. And he's like, yeah. Have you ever heard of Spring Day? And he's like, yeah, I know spring's from March to May. And Ji Hyuk's like, oh, must be lucky to have a long life. And that's when I was like, oh, he really does think he's gonna die. I feel like I feel like it's not an issue, but they keep bringing it up so much that I starting to make me think it is an issue. We'll see. But Ji Hyuk gets so drunk he passes out, and Hee Young comes to pick him up, and she's loving it. She's having a good time, like trying to wake him up. She's like, he never gets drunk like this. She realizes, well, Inho realizes that Hee Yuan is the coworker that Jiwon was talking to when he called about the cakes that he sent over. And she's like, oh, and I feel like there's gonna be a love connection there, which yay, because he's cute and all, but he can move. Like, somebody just step aside. He once says that her brother's going through a quarter life crisis because he never gets drunk like that and passes out anywhere. I do want to say, in Ho in this scene, he looked like such a dweeb, but he's a cutie. But I'm like, I don't see the attraction between him and Ji-won. I see it more with Hee Yuan, but that's mostly because I just want those two to get together because he's a cook and she loves food. He's like the bubbly one and he's like the calm one. And I just think they would be a good match. But Ji-won, when she's at home later, she tries to call Ji Hyuk, but he's drunk. His ass is not going to answer the phone. But then it cuts to the next morning and Ji Hyuk is out skeet shooting, drinking, having some hair at the dog. And one of the maids comes up to him and they bring him hangover soup. And while he's drinking it, she's like, your grandpa wants to talk to you. He goes to talk to his grandpa. And his grandpa's like, um, some lady, there's some girl that I feel like he's trying to pressure for that they made promises like when they were younger between the two families that they were going to get married. But the person who wrapped up the news story about the director when he caused all that commotion, I think that Uriah, I think that's her name. The grandpa is like, she did a really good job fixing this issue with us so that it'll die now. And the grandpa's like, what are you going to do about it? And he's like, what do you mean? I thought you wanted me to marry her. And he was like, yeah, that's what I want you to do. But I can't make you do something you don't want to do. And I was like, hold up. Is grandpa not being an asshole? Is he not going to force him to marry somebody he doesn't even like? And Grandpa admits, he was like, I know you guys don't even want to get married to each other. And he was like, just be sincere when you go to talk to her father. Um, but he's like, but when am I going to meet this girl? And Ji Hyuk's like, I don't think it's going to happen. He's like, you want me to be happy, but I want her to be happy. And when he says that, he looks like really crestfallen. And I think, again, he's thinking about how he's not going to be living for very long. So why would he start a relationship with her? On topic, but off topic. His noble idiocy pisses me off. Um, this part it makes sense here why it's happening because he does think he's gonna die, but in other dramas when it happens, it's so stupid. When all they have to do is just communicate with each other. I mean, he communicate too, but if he thinks he's gonna die, if he there is a possibility he could die, I can see why he would want to start something with Jiwon. But anyways, the grandpa also mentioned that he heard Jiwon had a or not Jiwon, Ji Hyuk had a fight with Mr. Lee at work, and Ji Hyuk's like, no, we didn't. And he's like, oh, that's also what Mr. Lee said. And Ji Hyuk's like, do you have eyes and ears at work too besides Mr. Lee? And Grandpa's like, I know you're gonna get rid of him when you become the CEO. So I need to keep him as long as possible. And then it goes to the next morning, and Jiwon's going into the office, and everybody's talking about the stocks that Jiwon purchased because Minhwan told her about them, or she remembered them from the past. And he sold and gave her money back for the loan she took out for him. And everybody's talking about how great these stocks are doing. And Minhwan comes over to her and he's like, you hear that? I sold those stocks for you. Sir, if you would have invested your own money, you still could have had those stocks. Paying somebody back the money you owe them so you could use it to invest in the stocks. How is that her fault? Give her her money, run her money. And he only gave her money back because it's when she tried to break up with him and he got upset and threatened her. The only reason, or he wouldn't have gave her money back. And after that happens, Jiwon goes and logs into her account to see how much money. I think it was sitting at 2 billion, I think is what it was sitting at. So $2 million USD. I'm like, okay, girl. And then Minhwan comes up to her and he's like, hey, I want to talk to you. And she goes to she minimizes it, but not before Suman sees what she did. And she walked away from her computer without locking it. Office 101. Always lock your computer if you step away. Okay. So Suman gets in her chair and pulls up her stocks and she's looking at them and she's like, this little fox, she's been sitting on these stocks that Minwon mentioned. And she's like, should I buy some? Because she's like, why does she still have them? Why didn't she sell them yet? And she's like, does she think they're going to do even better? And it shows her purchasing, like she hit the purchase button, but it doesn't show if she actually did it or not. And then it cuts to Minwon and Jiwon having a conversation. And he was like, so, you know that restaurant where I took Suman and I used your credit card? I was thinking about it and I really want to take you there. And she's like, oh, you were thinking about me? And he like tries to do the tuck her hair behind her ear. And she like shivers in disgust. Agree. Totally agree. And then he was like, yeah, he was like, but you still have that money, right? That money I gave you. Um, when I sold my stock for you, we can use that to pay for the restaurant. You shisty. You shisty, shady, conniving piece of shit. You said you wanted to take her out to dinner. That means you're supposed to pay. I know they're dating and it's kind of different when you're in a relationship together. Usually, if you're just dating, whoever asks has to pay, but you asked and she paid when you took Suman. So why can't you pay this time? And Jiwon is like, this motherfucker is like, of course he wants me to pay. And Jiwon's like, I knew it. This, as she comes up with a lie, she's like, oh, I'm such a dummy. That money, I put it into an insurance investment. She's like, if I take it out early, I'll get a penalty and I won't even get half of it. And he's like, wow, what the heck? Why the hell would you do that? And she's like, yeah, um, but if I keep it in there for a year, for 10 years, I can get a 10% return. He blew up. He was like, that's a scam. That just helps the insurance company. Why would you do that? And she was like, I just thought it was a really good uh, investment. Um, but then he's like, well, he's like, should I sell my stocks, the TKU stocks that he got from the company that G1 knows in the future is going to go belly up. And when she hears that, she's like, shit, no, I need him to keep his money in there. So he's flat broke when it goes under. She's like, well, I do have some money I could lend you. And he's like, do you? And she's like, yeah, I can let you borrow some money. And she's like, but maybe we shouldn't go out to eat. Let's go out and do something with Suman over the weekend. And it cuts to the weekend and they're having a picnic. The whole time, Jiwon is like over here by herself, and then Sumin and Minhwan are like coupled up, like they're the ones dating. Minhwan's complimenting Sumin, saying that she's a weather fairy and the weather's so great because she came. And then he turns to Jiwon and he's like, why are you always working? That's not attractive. Men don't like that. And Sumin's like, oh, stop it. Don't do that. You'll get in trouble. And he just laughs. And then he pulls out a beer and opens it and gives it to Sumin, not Jiwon. He gives it to Sumin. And then he's like, oh, do you want one too? And it cuts to all three of them laying out on the blanket and they're just laying in the sun. And Jiwon's like, it's really great. It's really fantastic that I've known you guys for so long. Sumin, I met you when I was in middle school. And we've been friends since then. Jiwon or Minwon, I met you when I started at the company and we've been together since then. Like we just have a really incredible friendships and like relationship. And Sumin looks over at her and she's like, yeah, we're like a family. Me, you, and Minhwan. And after she says that, Minhwan like takes his hand and he goes to put it on her and she gets triggered. She remembers how he hit her. He tried to hit her when she confronted them in her previous life. And she like jumps up and she's like, oh no, it's just a bug. Minhwan goes to Sumin Because she's like, oh, a bug, and starts freaking out. And he goes to her and starts swatting the bug away from her while Jiwon's just sitting there watching. That's not weird or anything, right? So when he does that, Jiwon has a flashback of when they were dating, when he did that for her. And it's like, okay, so he actually did have feelings for her at one point, and it seemed genuine. And she says that. She was like, oh, I remember when you did that for me. I thought you were so cool. And him and Suman get embarrassed. And she was like, well, it's okay. Suman's scared of bugs too. It's a good thing you're here. And then sees a couple going by, and the guy's helping the girl learn how to ride a bike. And there's another flashback of when her and Minhwan were dating. And he helped her. He was helping her learn how to ride a bike. And it makes you think about how these people, well, at least Minhwan, I don't know about Suman. From the beginning, it seems like she's been a piece of shit. But it seems like Minhwan wasn't always a trash person. But when you think about it, if he was just being nice just so he could have somebody to leech off of course he would be a decent human being at first until she's in his clutches and she can't get away. So I'm like, okay. But from her perspective, she remembers the good times. But after that flashback, she gets a phone call and she's like, oh, Juran, you need me to come into the office? And she looks at them. She's like, oh, I gotta go. And she leaves. And she leaves them there. And they're like, she's always working. I never get to see her anymore. And Minhwan's like, me either. She's working on this project like she's in charge of it. I mean, it was her baby. Until all that shit happened and she just got added to it like it wasn't her idea in the first place. And Minhwan sees somebody riding on a bike and he's like, oh, Suman, do you know how to ride a bike? I can teach you. I'm like, yeah. But the phone call, it cuts to Jiwon on the phone. It was actually Inho that called her. It wasn't Juran. And he's asking her where she is because he's outside of her office. And she's like, oh, I'll be there in a little bit. She shows up and he has flowers, like a big ass bouquet of flowers. They're beautiful. But he gives them to her. Of course, Ji Hyuk sees it and he's jelly. And he goes up to his office and Jiwon comes up there too. And she like lays the flowers down and she sees him and she tells him she needs to talk to him. And he asks her like, what are you doing in the office? And she was like, oh, I just wanted to give Minhwan and Suman a chance to have their little date. When they go to sit down to talk, he tells her there's two things that he messed up on when he succeeded to being the CEO. There's a company called Cloud Air. The only thing I know about Cloud Air from what we've been told is the Uriah girl that he was supposed to get married to. She works for them, I believe, or that's her family's company. And then Kalite Tour, which we don't know anything about, but both of them were subsidiaries of UNK, the conglomerate that Ji Hyuk is going to be taking over, but they broke apart and they became independent after he became CEO. And the other thing was that Lee Suk-jun, Mr. Lee, the grandpa's right-hand man, he left the company when Ji Hyuk rose to power. So I think he's going to be trying to work on those things as well. So that gives him even more agency and something for him to work towards. Unlike in the webtoon where he was just there to serve Jiwon, which, that's not a bad thing. But he actually has a personality and stuff. And he let her know because of Mr. Lee coming in that day, that's why he wasn't able to put her as the lead on the project. But he said he'll help her with everything again. He said that before. And then it cuts to Inho and he's at work and he's doing inventory and his friend scolds him and he's saying, when he worked at another location, at another restaurant, he would be there hours early, but he's like, now you only come in like a few minutes before it's time. And he's like, but am I late? And he's like, no. He's like, but your friend's here again, Ji Hyuk. And the guy's like, now I feel like you're stalking me or like you're bothering me. And Ji Hyuk's like, I just want to get to know you. I want to make sure you're not a player, and I want to make sure you can be solid land. In reference to the episode when Ji Hyuk first met Ji Won when they're in college and she was drunk, he told him when they were sitting on the grassy knoll that after her dad passed, it felt like she was on a boat, even though she was solid. Being on the boat made her feel anxious and she just wanted stability. She's like, I just want solid land. So that's why Ji Hyuk keeps using it as a reference. He tells In-ho, he's like, I'm not going to be drinking anymore because he has something to do. What you got to do? What are you doing? It cuts to the next morning at work, and Ji Hyuk tells everybody, hey, there's going to be a marketing workshop. And we see Minhwan and Sumin like giving each other the eye at their desks because their desks, like this is Sumin, this is Minhwan, and me, like where the mic is, that would be Hee Yeon. That's the lineup for their desks. Jiwon and Jiran, they were like, it would be a good idea if we let Hee Yuan plan the workshop since she got left out of the meal kit project, and she's on board, so excited. And then it cuts to the workshop, and they have it's like a treasure hunt, and there's a different accommodations for each flag that you find. There's 5 of them. Well, they're numbered 1 to 5, and there's multiple ones throughout the camping area that they're staying. One is like this glamped out camper. The second one is a glamped tent. The third one is just like a regular tent. The fourth one is just a smaller version of the tent, and then the fifth one is just sleeping bags. So whichever flag you end up with at the end of the day, that's where your accommodations are going to go when you sleep. But if you rip somebody's name tag off, you can take their flag. So if they have number 1, you can tear their name tag off and get the number 1 flag instead. And they'll have to take whichever one you have, or if you don't have one. And I was like, that's actually sounds like a lot of fun. And Jiwon says that. She was like, oh, this will be really fun. This will be something different. And Minhwan's like, oh, you suck at treasure hunts. Just leave this to the man. I'll handle everything. Cut to him getting his name tag ripped off and rolled over. Because he's a punk ass. And Jiwon mentions when she sees Minhwan getting accosted and getting his flag stolen. I forget which one he started with when they showed him though, but he ended up with 5 when the guy came and ripped his name tag off. Jiwon said that previously he did end up with flag 5. She ended up with 4, so she had a tent. But Sumin ended up with number 1, and it's because in the previous timeline, Mr. Kim was there and he got the number 1 flag for her. And then present time, it goes to Sumin grabbing Jiwon, and they hide behind one of the tents. And they overhear Hee Yeon and Juran and another one of the people that are organizing the festivities saying where they have the number 1 flag hidden. And it's like up on you got to cross water to get to it basically. And Sumin's like, oh, dang. How can I get this? This is going to be hard. I guess probably because she can't swim. And she turns to Jiwon and she's like, does Minwon know how to swim? And she's like, and she's like, why? She's like, because we can use him to get it. She's like, and Jiwon's like, so you want my boyfriend to get the flag for you? And Sumin's like, yeah, it's okay if I borrow him, right? She's like, if you really want something, you have to go after it by any means. And after she says that, Jiwon notices that Sumin has this new necklace on. And then Sumin, when she says that to Jiwon, Jiwon realizes that's how Sumin always got what she wanted. She did whatever it took to get it. And why she always was shitting on Jiwon. I think she's just shitting on Jiwon because she's an inferiority complex and she's a loser. But anyways, Jiwon's like walking through the forest, thinking about that when she runs into Ji-hyuk, and he walks up to her and he mentions if she knows where number one is, and she's like, yeah, she knows where it is. And she asks for his help, and he right away says no problem, and he walks towards the stream where the flag would go, and she's like, no, that's not what I meant. She was like, she just wants to be able to confide in him and not have him judge her and just listen, because there's nobody else around that she can talk to honestly about her life, because he's the only other person that came back from the future. She doesn't want him to do anything that he wouldn't do before. She said in her previously, before you became the CEO, you never did anything bad, or like you never did anything like out of line. You were always honest, and I want you to stay like that. I don't want you to do something just to help me. She's like, I want to take care of things on my own. You know, he keeps telling her if she wants help, just ask him. And she keeps telling him no. And she was like, I just want to do this for myself. And she asked him, what do you want? She was like, this is your second chance too. What do you want? And he was like, because I just want to be happy. I just want to I want to be strong for myself. And Ji-hyuk like walks up to her and he unzips his jacket. I'm like, oh, okay. But he says, you always said when your dad gave you an allowance, it had a blue heart. And he opened his shirt so she could see the blue heart on his chest. And she went to go touch it. And he said, I'm your dad's allowance. Use me as much as you want. I was like, that was hot. But Jiwon, she like closed his shirt up and she like patted him. She was like, what if I don't want to spend it? What if I just want my allowance to listen? I want my allowance to be happy too. And she was like, what do you want? What's going to make you happy? And I think he was about to say being with you, because if he has not made himself clear, he has been very clear that he is all about Jiwon. But she stops him, and that's when she says, I just want to be happy. I want to do this on my own. I don't want anybody to help me. She wants to be happy on her own strength. And then it cuts to Sumin wandering around in the forest, and she sees Minhwan sitting on a bench, like holding his back because his back got messed up. And she sees a thorny branch, and she uses that as an excuse to to be a damsel in distress. She like cuts herself on it, and she's like, oh. And Minwan runs over, like, Sumin, are you okay? And she shows him her little cut. And he's like, oh, we need to go get some first aid. Why did she lick it? She was like, the music they played, hilarious. Minhwan, he thought it was hot. But she was like, no, I'm fine now. I use my saliva. And he was like, we need to get some ointment. And she's like, no, but I need your help with something. And he was like, what is it? He was like, I know where the #1 flag is, but since I got this cut, I don't want it to get infected if I go in the water. So, of course, Minwan volunteers herself to be her knight in shining armor, go get this flag. But then it cuts to Jiwon, and she took off her socks and her shoes and her vest that they wore with your name tag to rip off. And she starts to go into the water. But it cuts to Hee Yuan talking to Juron, telling her, hey, one of the safety people said that we can't have the #1 flag where it is because the water's deep right there and the moss is slippery. So it's like a safety hazard. And they're like, oh, shoot, we got to go get the safety person and let them know. Ji Hyuk hears this and immediately runs back to where he's seen Jiwon, and it cuts to her again. She's still crossing the stream, and it goes to the deep part, and she like goes under, and you see Ji Hyuk just out of nowhere dragging her out, and he rescues her, and he looks so upset. He looks upset and concerned, and it was so sweet. But he's like yelling at her. He's like, why don't you just ask me for help? Why is she taking the hard? He's like, why are you taking the hard path? Just ask me for help. I'll do anything for you. And she yells at him. She's like, because I'm not Suman. She's like, because she's wrong and I'm right. I want to be strong for myself. I want to do this on my own. And Ji Hyuk, he really can't even say anything because he understands what she means. And like puts his hand on her, like caressing her face. I swear I thought they were gonna kiss. And he held it. His hand is huge. It was it was really it was hot. It was really hot because his hand is so big, and then Park Min Young's face is so small. He's like looking at her, and he is remembering again what she said when I mentioned when she was drunk and she wanted solid land. And he said that. He looked at her and he was like, I want to be solid land. And Jiwon looks at him and she's kind of confused, but she like a tear comes down because she doesn't remember. I don't think she remembers at all what happened because previously she told Hee Yeon that it was a drunken mistake, and she was so drunk she doesn't remember anything. But it's starting to slowly she's starting to get little flashbacks. But that's the end of the episode. It's getting really good. Again, it's getting really good. The part with Juron and her husband, I like that you can see that as the parallel of Ji Won's old life. It's like was her life like that previously? Because Ji Won did say that she ended up quitting the company, and I wonder if her private life was just as bad as it is currently, or is it worse? We don't know for sure yet. Mr. Lee, feeling real villainish, and I don't know how I feel about that. I like the actor that plays him, but I'm kind of on the fence if he's there to like sabotage Ji Hyuk, or what his motives are, and why did he tell Juron that he can't stand her? What did she do when they were on Jeju Island that made that elicited that response from him? I don't know. Sumin, we see what her motivations are. Like she's a manipulative person, we already know. But she's actually telling this to Jiwon, and she's starting to see that it may not be as easy as she thinks it's going to be for her to. Well, it probably will be as easy, but she sees what her motivations are now, Sumin, and she's just not a good person. Just thinking about how previously what she's done to Jiwon. Ji Hyuk, I don't know if he is trying to get Inho and Jiwon together because he doesn't think he should start something with her. I feel like he is very concerned about if he's going to live or not, which is understandable. But he caused the accident himself, so I feel like it should be fine. The outfit, Jiwon had on a bunch of great outfits. She had on the white dress. We got to see it fully. And it was just an A-line white dress, but it still looked really nice. She had that like a corset, and then she had a white blouse over top of it when they had the meeting about what they're going to do with the project. She had on the white skirt, or not white skirt. She had on a white blouse with a black A-line skirt, and that looked really cute. I feel like there's another outfit that the outfit she wore to the picnic. It was simple, but all of her outfits are simple, but they're classy, and I like all of them. I really like the blouse that she had, the neckline for the blouse that she wore when they went to the picnic, and she had like just a regular tank top layered underneath it. Sumin's outfit that she wore to the picnic I thought was cute. I liked the skirt, and she had on another cute skirt. The skirt she wore when she ran over to look at Jiwon's computer to see her stocks. And then Hee Yuan, she had on these cute culottes. I thought it was a skirt at first until I seen her walk away, and it was actually shorts, but it looked like a little ice skating skirt. I'm so happy the grandpa like backed off, and he's letting Ji Hyuk decide on his own marriage, because after Ji Hyuk told him the first time, he didn't seem like he was going to listen to him. But I think this time when he went and talked to him, he realizes, like, let him live. Like, he's always done what I had him to. He's an adult. Let him adult Gramps, okay? And I'm happy that he finally is. Inho, you're cute, buddy. But again, I'm going to need you to just step aside. I do not see anything happening. Please put your 10-year crush, please pack that up and bury it, okay? And move on. Preferably with Hee Yeon. That'll be the end of the video. Are you caught up on Marry My Husband? Did you see episode 8? Did you read the webtoon? The webtoon is fantastic. I really thoroughly enjoyed it when I read it, but the drama, I'm liking all the additions that they have included. Ji Hyuk having his own agency, being a fully fleshed out person, for one, I'm really enjoying that. Ji Won slowly coming into her confidence and getting the courage to stand up to these people who have been bullying her for years. And I think it's very realistic that she still gets flashbacks of when Min Hyuk killed her. It's very realistic. And I like that they show that she didn't just miraculously just get over it all of a sudden. And it seems like Ji Hyuk, besides him worrying about if he's going to pass away, he also sometimes gets triggered as well, which would be realistic. If you liked the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.